Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
I would doubt he knows.
So when this airs, that'll be the first time that his legal team, Diddy, that everybody knows that this footage is now seeing the light of day. One could watch this and think that you really hate Sean Combs.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's going to say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time.
Gotta ask you, Janice Combs, how you feel about her? I mean, they alleging that she was, having freak-off.
I spoke to a man, Mr. Brown, who used to go to the freak-offs, and he knew Miss Combs, and he knew about her and her freak-offs and everything like that. We had always thought that she had a modeling agency, but it wasn't a modeling agency. It was more a brothel that she ran for high-profile drug dealers and athletes.
Just when the internet thought the Diddy headlines couldn't get any darker, 50 Cent kicked the door off the hinges and reminded everyone why he's the most patient menace in entertainment history. No warning. No countdown. No mercy. 1 minute people were scrolling memes. The next minute a new documentary dropped, and an alleged explosive video started circulating like a digital grenade with the pin already pulled. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't a vague quote. This wasn't a sources say situation whispered into a blog. This was 50 Cent moving like a man who has been waiting for the perfect moment to press play. And when he did, the internet froze. Because suddenly, the same stories people laughed off for years didn't sound so funny anymore. Screenshots multiplied. Comment sections imploded. Celebrities went suspiciously silent. And fans started asking the question nobody wanted to say out loud. Why now? This makes hip-hop beef look like playground arguments. This makes reality TV drama feel like background noise. Because when 50 Cent drops a documentary tied to alleged leaked footage involving Diddy and his own mother, it doesn't feel random. It feels calculated. The moment the documentary went live, the internet stopped pretending this was just another celebrity rollout. This wasn't a trailer drop. This wasn't a promo clip. This was 50 Cent walking into an already burning room, tossing gasoline on the floor, and calmly stepping back to watch who runs for the exits. Because everyone understands one thing about 50 by now. He does not move without intention, and he does not forget. To understand why this hit so hard, you have to rewind the clock. 50 Cent and Diddy have shared the same industry orbit for decades, circling each other through hip-hop politics, business moves, public jabs, and moments of strategic silence. The tension has never fully disappeared, but it's usually played off as jokes, memes, and side-eye. That's why this moment felt different. Jokes don't come with documentaries. Memes don't arrive with alleged footage attached. This felt like a message. The documentary didn't open with accusations screamed into the camera. It didn't need to. Instead, it stitched together years of moments people conveniently ignored. Interviews that aged poorly. Old clips that suddenly felt uncomfortable. Quotes that once sounded harmless, but now landed with weight. The tone wasn't hysterical. It was methodical, calm, almost surgical. And that restraint made it more unsettling than any rant ever could. Then came the alleged video, not introduced with fireworks, not framed as a smoking gun, just placed into the conversation like a question nobody wanted to answer. Was this new? Was this old? Was this misunderstood? The ambiguity did the damage. Because ambiguity invites debate, and debate invites attention. And attention is the last thing anyone connected to controversy wants. Reaction was instant and chaotic. Fans flooded social media accusing 50 of finally saying what the industry whispers. Others pushed back, demanding proof, context, and accountability. Skeptics called it exploitation. Supporters called it exposure. And somewhere in the middle sat millions of viewers trying to reconcile how something this explosive could exist without immediate consequences. The timing raised eyebrows immediately. Why now? Why release this while the internet is already primed to believe the worst? Why not years ago? Critics argued that the timing felt opportunistic, like capitalizing on a cultural moment already spiraling. Supporters countered that timing is the point. That conversations only change when pressure exists. And 50 Cent, love him or hate him, understands pressure better than most. What made this situation even stranger was what didn't happen. There was no immediate counterattack. No aggressive denials flooding timelines. No celebrity coalition rushing in to defend reputations. Instead, there was silence. Long, awkward, strategic silence. And in the age of instant reactions, silence feels louder than shouting. 50, meanwhile, stayed exactly where he always positions himself in moments like this. Just outside the blast radius, posting jokes, liking comments, moving like someone who already knows the next chapter. He didn't explain the documentary. He didn't clarify the video. He let the internet do the work for him, arguing, dissecting, and amplifying every frame. That's when the sarcasm turned sharp. People joked that 50 didn't drop a documentary. He dropped a reminder. Others said this wasn't a leak. It was a receipt drawer being cracked open just enough to make people nervous. Memes compared him to a historian of chaos, archiving moments the industry hoped everyone forgot. Laughs spread, but they carried tension. Because humor is how people cope when they're unsure what's coming next. Industry insiders started speaking without really speaking. Vague posts about truth coming out. Quotes about letting the facts surface. Warnings about misinformation mixed with acknowledgments that conversations were overdue. Nobody said names. Nobody took sides publicly. And that careful neutrality only fed speculation further. Because when powerful people avoid clarity, it's rarely because nothing is happening. Critics accused 50 of blurring the line between documentation and provocation. They argued that presenting alleged footage without definitive context is irresponsible. Supporters fired back that documentaries have always raised questions, not delivered verdicts. And 50 positioned himself squarely in that gray area, narrating history instead of issuing accusations. That distinction matters because he didn't say, "This is the truth." He said, "This is what's been ignored." And that shift placed the burden back on the audience, on the culture, on the systems that decide which stories are dismissed and which are elevated. The first wave of backlash didn't target Diddy directly. It targeted 50. People questioned his motives. They dragged up his past feuds. They accused him of revenge marketing, attention farming, and stirring chaos for profit. But those arguments stumbled over one inconvenient fact. The content existed, the footage existed, the history existed. Whether people liked the messenger or not didn't erase the material. And that's where the discomfort settled in. Because the internet loves calling out messengers when it doesn't want to grapple with messages. It's easier to argue about intent than to confront implications. And the implications here were heavy. Not just for one person, but for an industry that has long protected its most powerful figures behind silence and jokes. The documentary didn't accuse the audience of wrongdoing. It invited them to look again, to revisit moments with fresh eyes, to question why certain rumors were treated as punchlines instead of red flags. And once those questions are asked, they don't disappear. As views climbed, reaction channels scrambled to keep up. Every frame was slowed down. Every line was dissected. Every pause was analyzed like it held secret meaning. And the more people talked, the more the documentary grew beyond its runtime. It became a conversation nobody could fully control. This wasn't closure. It was ignition. And as the internet argued itself into exhaustion, one thing became clear. 50 Cent didn't drop this documentary to entertain. He dropped it to disrupt. To remind people that stories don't vanish just because they're inconvenient. They wait. They age. And sometimes, they return louder than ever. Once the documentary escaped the confines of its runtime and spilled into the timeline, the internet did what it always does when confronted with uncomfortable ambiguity. It split into camps, grabbed megaphones, and started arguing past each other at full volume. Because nothing triggers chaos faster than a story that refuses to tell you exactly what to think. Memes hit first, fast and ruthless. Screenshots from the documentary were chopped, captioned, and turned into reaction bait within minutes. People joke that 50 Cent didn't release a project. He released a stress test for celebrity loyalty. Others said this made hip-hop beef look like customer service complaints filed politely and ignored. The humor was sharp, but underneath it was a nervous energy. The kind you get when people laugh because silence would feel worse. Then the reactions escalated. INE fell, UENCERS rushed to post neutral takes that somehow leaned very hard in one direction. Reaction channels pretended to be shocked while already queuing up 10 follow-up videos. Podcasts recorded emergency episodes with titles screaming, "This changes everything," while carefully saying almost nothing definitive. Everyone wanted in on the moment, but nobody wanted responsibility for how it landed, and that's when celebrity reactions started leaking through the cracks. Not statements, not press releases, just likes, unfollows, cryptic emojis, and vague quotes about truth, healing, and letting the facts come out. The absence of direct defense was loud. Because in an industry built on instant damage control, silence feels like strategy. And strategy usually means lawyers are reading before anyone speaks. 50 Cent, meanwhile, continued doing what he does best. He hovered, he joked. He posted with just enough sarcasm to remind everyone he was enjoying the chaos without owning it. He didn't clarify the footage. He didn't expand on the allegations. He let the internet do the amplification, knowing full well that speculation travels faster than confirmation. Critics sharpened their knives. They accused him of exploiting a serious situation for clicks and controversy. They argued that dropping alleged footage without ironclad context invites misinformation. They questioned whether documentaries should raise questions or provide answers. And while those criticisms sounded reasonable on the surface, they ran into a wall. The same wall that always appears when long-standing rumors collide with new visibility. Why now feels different? Because the outrage wasn't just about the documentary. It was about timing colliding with cultural fatigue. People are tired of pretending uncomfortable stories don't exist. Tired of laughing off whispers as jokes. Tired of watching powerful figures skate past accountability while the internet plays dumb. And this documentary, whether intentionally or not, landed right in the middle of that. Exhaustion. Pop culture comparisons went wild. Some said this felt like opening a time capsule nobody wanted buried. Others compared it to a slow-burn thriller, where the scariest moments aren't loud, they're quiet and familiar. One viral post joked that 50 didn't leak anything. He reminded people where the bodies are buried and let imagination do the rest. Another said this makes celebrity documentaries look like bedtime stories by comparison. The public outrage grew louder, but it wasn't unified. One side demanded accountability and transparency, arguing that stories don't expire just because they're old. Another side warned against trial by internet, insisting that allegations should be handled carefully, not fed to algorithms. Both sides claimed moral high ground, and neither trusted the other. That tension fed the algorithm perfectly. The alleged video became the center of gravity. People debated its origin, its context, its meaning. Was it being misunderstood? Was it incomplete? Was it even relevant? The lack of definitive answers kept the conversation alive. Because certainty ends debates. Ambiguity keeps them profitable. Meanwhile, industry insiders began whispering louder. Anonymous sources popped up claiming everyone knew, without explaining what that meant. Others hinted that this was only a fraction of what exists. Some warned that more content could surface. Others dismissed the documentary as old news repackaged for attention. The contradictions fueled confusion, and confusion fueled clicks. What didn't happen was resolution. No clear rebuttal arrived. No comprehensive explanation shut the conversation down. No definitive proof buried it either. The story floated in that dangerous middle space where nothing is confirmed, but nothing feels dismissible. And that's the worst place for reputations to sit. The backlash toward 50 intensified. People accused him of weaponizing the moment. They dragged his history, his feuds, his past controversies, as if discrediting him would erase the material. But that tactic only highlighted something uncomfortable. Attacking the messenger doesn't make the message disappear. It just proves People don't want to confront it. Supporters fired back just as aggressively. They argued that documentaries aren't verdicts. That raising questions isn't the same as making accusations. That the culture has a habit of protecting power by mocking anyone who challenges it. And they pointed out that 50 didn't create the history he referenced. He curated it. That distinction matters. Even if people don't like it. As the days passed, the conversation spread beyond hip-hop. Commentators from outside the culture weighed in, framing it as a broader commentary on fame, accountability, and selective outrage. They asked why certain stories are ignored until someone with enough clout forces attention, and why discomfort is treated like defamation instead of an invitation to investigate. The internet didn't have answers. It had opinions, memes, and exhaustion. People argued in circles, each convinced the other side was either naive or malicious. And through it all, the documentary continued pulling views, proving one undeniable point. The appetite for reckoning is real, even when people pretend they just want entertainment. This phase of the saga wasn't about facts being settled. It was about lines being drawn. Who believes what? Who trusts whom? Who benefits from silence? Who profits from chaos? And whether the culture is capable of holding two ideas at once. That allegations are serious and should be handled carefully, and that ignoring them entirely is also a choice with consequences. By the end of this stretch, the internet was louder, angrier, and more divided than before. The story hadn't cooled. It had deepened. Because now it wasn't just about what was shown. By the time the outrage cycle started eating its own tail, one thing was obvious. This wasn't just another viral moment that would dissolve into the algorithm by next week. The documentary and the alleged leaked video had changed the temperature of the room permanently. Not because they delivered answers, but because they forced a reckoning nobody could dodge with jokes anymore, and that's where the real consequences began. Reputations don't collapse all at once. They crack slowly, under the weight of repeated questions that never quite get answered. And this situation didn't accuse anyone in a courtroom sense. It did something far more dangerous. It reminded people of patterns they'd already seen and asked why those patterns were ignored for so long. Once that door opens, it doesn't close neatly. For Diddy's public image, the impact was immediate but uneven. Loyal supporters rushed in, accusing the internet of piling on and turning allegations into entertainment. They argued that speculation isn't evidence and that cultural moments shouldn't replace due process. And they weren't wrong about the danger of internet trials, but they couldn't erase the discomfort either. Because the silence from powerful allies, the lack of unified defense, and the cautious tone of responses all fed the same uneasy feeling. Something had shifted. Industry relationships started feeling tense in subtle ways. No dramatic fallouts. No public disavowals, just distance, careful wording, strategic avoidance. When controversy hits this level, people don't always pick sides loudly. They protect themselves quietly. Invitations dry up. Collaborations pause. Conversations move behind closed doors. And that kind of silence speaks volumes to anyone paying attention. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's position became clearer with each passing day. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He wasn't presenting himself as a savior or a whistleblower. He played the role he's always played. The instigator who doesn't accuse directly but refuses to let stories disappear. The archivist of chaos, who reminds people that history doesn't reset just because it's inconvenient. That role comes with backlash. But it also comes with influence. Because love him or hate him, 50 has leverage. Cultural leverage, media leverage. The ability to force conversations that others hint at but never fully confront. And this move reinforced his reputation as someone who doesn't need permission to shake the table. The public reaction began to mature, if only slightly. Some viewers admitted that the documentary didn't give them clarity, but it gave them pause. Others said it made them revisit moments they'd laughed off years ago. Some rejected the entire premise outright, choosing to protect their nostalgia at all costs. The division wasn't clean, but it was real. And division keeps stories alive far longer than consensus ever could. The biggest consequence wasn't legal or professional. It was cultural. This moment exposed how selective outrage really is. How quickly the internet demands accountability from some while extending endless patience to others. How often allegations are dismissed until someone powerful enough refuses to let them fade. And how uncomfortable people get when entertainment collides with morality. Because this wasn't fun drama. This wasn't beef with punchlines and diss tracks. This was heavy, ambiguous, unresolved. And the internet isn't built to sit with unresolved discomfort. It wants closure or chaos. Preferably chaos. As days passed, the conversation stopped trending but didn't disappear. It moved into long form. Discussions, podcasts, think pieces, and late-night debates. The kind that don't explode but linger. The kind that quietly reshape how people talk about power and accountability. That's the part nobody can undo, whether the allegations hold. Wait or fall apart under scrutiny, the reminder remains. Stories don't vanish just because they're inconvenient. They wait. They resurface when conditions change. And sometimes all it takes is one documentary, one clip, one calculated release to bring them roaring back. This didn't end careers overnight. It complicated them. It added footnotes, question marks, asterisks. And in the public eye, those marks matter more than definitive answers. Because they influence how future stories are received, how defenses are framed, how silence is interpreted. The internet moved on, as it always does, but it didn't forget, and neither did 50 Cent. That's the most unsettling part of all. This didn't feel like a final move. It felt like a reminder, a signal flare, a warning that more history exists, more footage may exist, and more conversations can be forced if someone decides it's time. This documentary didn't resolve anything. It destabilized everything. And in an industry built on image control, destabilization is terrifying. Because once narratives slip out of carefully managed hands, they don't return obediently. They spread, mutate, and resurface at the worst possible times. The real aftermath isn't visible yet. It will show up later. In cautious interviews, in collaborations that never happen. In names that stop being mentioned as casually as before. In stories that get treated with a little more skepticism, a little more weight. That's how cultural consequences work. Quiet. Slow. Permanent. This wasn't a victory lap. It was a fracture. And fractures don't always break things apart. Sometimes they just make them impossible to ignore. Whatever happens next, one thing is already clear. The internet won't look at these names the same way again. The jokes won't land the same. The nostalgia won't feel as comfortable. And the silence won't feel neutral anymore. Now, let's pause right here. Because this is the moment where you stop being a spectator and start being part of the conversation. This story didn't just slide across your screen by accident. It landed because it hit a nerve. And if you felt uncomfortable, confused, or caught yourself saying, "This is getting real," that's exactly the reaction moments like this are supposed to spark. So don't scroll past it, if you think 50 Cent is forcing conversations the industry has avoided for years. Smash that like button like it just leaked a secret you weren't ready to hear. If you think this documentary crossed a line or blurred dangerous boundaries, hit that like button anyway, because controversy deserves attention, whether you agree or not. Either way, engagement tells the algorithm this story isn't finished. Now jump into the comments. I want to know where you stand. Is 50 exposing long-ignored patterns, or is he stirring chaos at the worst possible time? Are these conversations overdue, or should some doors stay closed? Say it with your chest, but keep it sharp. This comment section is where the real debate lives. And don't forget to subscribe, because this channel doesn't wait for headlines to cool down. We break stories while they're still shaking rooms. When the next clip surfaces, the next documentary drops, or the next powerful name starts trending for all the wrong reasons, you'll want to be here early, not catching up in hindsight. Turn on notifications and stay locked in, because moments like this don't happen once. They come in waves. And when they hit, the truth usually isn't loud, it's buried between jokes, silence, and selective outrage. Stay curious, stay skeptical. Stay watching. Because when the fame cracks and the blueprint starts showing its flaws, we don't look away, we break it down. Fame Blueprint.